All right, Jazz Hampton.
How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm great. Good to go.
Welcome to the interview. Do you want to tell people what your name is and why you're here?
Yeah, my name is Jazz Hampton, and I live here in Minneapolis, and I'm compelled to now and am running for mayor of Minneapolis.
Okay, and just to start everything off, why are you running for mayor of Minneapolis? Where did this start?
Yeah, I think in my mind I picture, we've all seen it, like a tire of a car that's stuck spinning in snow, and you're watching them hit the gas and it's revving and nothing's happening. And it's foolish to think that if you don't inject something new, if you don't prop something under that tire, if you don't do something new, nothing is going to change in that situation. That's how I felt about our local leadership recently. I've seen so much tension within leadership, and we have to address very important things that we all think of: affordable housing, public safety, economics of our city. And if we don't get past this gridlock, this spinning of a tire, we're not going to go anywhere. And I have the background and experience, I believe, to be a person that can address that and be the leader the city needs.
Well, the spinning tire may be different to a lot of different people. What is the spinning tire to you? Like, when did you first notice this isn't working? And what wasn't working?
When I felt in my heart is when I would read anything in any form of media, and I felt like every time we were talking about something happening in the city, it was about people arguing with people, not about policy being passed. And I would even actually say that if there was policy being passed that I didn't agree with, something was being done, but that's not what I felt. It felt like there was tension around things, some of the most important policy topics that weren't having progress, and that's when I started having that feeling.
What was like an important policy topic, just for people that are watching and they're wondering, like specifically, what did you see where there was tension or there were people arguing? Of the many things people argue about online.
I think affordable housing, and when you say affordable housing, that's a big umbrella. The niche of it is obviously going to be some of our neighbors that are unhoused right now. And that was one of the biggest ones. I've been a part of organizations working in that space for a very long time, and I care deeply about it, and so seeing the lack of traction there was frustrating.
And with affordable housing, what have you been hearing from people that they're like, oh, I gotta leave the city, or are they saying, I have to not own a house anymore, I can only rent, or what are you hearing from people? Yeah,
I think it's a circle of, all of these things are connected, right? So it was a small business owner saying, there's an encampment near our small business and people are coming less. And that business was having less opportunity to be successful. And their employees were getting laid off. And then maybe their employees were struggling to have housing that they could pay for at a rent that is too high in this moment. And then that cycle continues. So I've heard it from all portions of that clock. And that's the thing, it isn't just a business owner, it's also an unhoused person or a person that was making minimum wage at a coffee shop that also can't pay rent anymore.
And so you said you've been working in some of these lanes that deal with this or work with this. What have you been working in that has addressed affordable housing?
Yeah, so I've been a part of an organization that addresses not only affordable housing, but all kinds of services that people that are struggling from an income perspective address it. And I started at Catholic Charities, I think 4.5 or 5 years ago on that board. And that's really what not only helped me understand the entire ecosystem of people working in the space, from Agate to other organizations that were sister and brother organizations in that time, but also starting to learn directly from the people using the services and their needs was really impactful at that time as well.
Okay, and for people that are like not new to Catholic Charities and in these other limbs that help out people with affordable housing, what is it in that line of work that y'all did to like help out other folks with housing or get back up on their feet?
Yeah, so when people think of Catholic Charities in the Twin Cities, they think of Dorothy Day Center. If you're exiting in downtown St. Paul, you see that what is now a big, beautiful building that helps so many folks. They often don't think about, on the north side of Minneapolis, there's a child care center for folks who can't afford it but are trying to go to work and they need someone to help with child care, right? They do services in that space. And that's just two pieces of a very large portion of the work that they're doing, trying to raise people out of the impoverished situation that they're in at that moment.
So while we're getting into everything, because there's so many things to get into for Minneapolis with affordable housing, with public safety, with even transit, as we were just talking about, with the cameras that are going to go up for Vision Zero. Some questions that people had that already sent into us. One of which was, and this is just, we're going to step out for a second. What is your favorite park or parks in Minneapolis? And do you walk often?
Do I walk often?
Do you go for walks often?
I do. I have 3 kids, and they're learning how to ride bikes, and so I can walk next to them. And then if you see my social media, the vast majority of the videos I post about things that are going on are me walking throughout parks and neighborhoods in Minneapolis and just having a conversation to the camera. I have to get over the social weirdness of that at times. But yeah, so I'm walking all the time, and I think proximity is important. I think the park that I go to the most is either Boom Island. I park my EV there because I don't have a charger and I have an EV. So I park there and then I walk to work from there.
Oh, there you go.
And so I spend a lot of time in Boom Island right now.
Yeah, Boom Island's a beautiful park. I mean, even in winter, like it's just like, it's a great place to walk through. It's just so, it's just, there's not a lot disturbing it, and then boom, you have the river.
Yeah.
So as I asked you the first question, one of the wheels spinning underneath the vehicle of Minneapolis, I thought you were gonna go right into public safety.
Oh yeah.
Because I think it's like an obvious here. It's like, I tell everybody this story. I was on tour with the band and we stopped in Cincinnati, and I remember getting out in downtown and just seeing it was really neglected and barren, and there was just nothing going on. And it was the middle of the day in Cincinnati in the 2000s. And I pulled one of the people aside at the bar we were playing at, and I said, "What happened out here?" And this person said, "Oh man, we had this this cop shoot a black guy who was running away, and people got pretty upset about that. So there's a lot of rallies and whatnot, and just whole city got flipped over, and nobody really cleaned up." And I'm like, huh. And I roll through and see all these other instances of whenever you have police brutality, police violence that rears its ugly head on the public, it creates an economic sinkhole. And so really nothing grows from it. You look at where Winston Smith was killed. You look at George Floyd. You even Terrence Franklin. People don't forget where these places are, and the revisit always occurs. It always happens. And what for you about the wheel spinning did you realize? This public safety isn't really working for everybody.
I think I've just experienced it firsthand that fortified those experiences that everyone talks about, right? And that's on both ends of this spectrum where my car has been stolen from in front of my house multiple times. I was outside at noon on a Sunday when someone burglarized the car behind me, and I chased the vehicle that did it. And when I'm calling police and hoping for an interaction or someone to come address that and solve the crime, or the credit card that was taken out of our car used at the Target down the road, and they had video of the person doing it, I was like, something's gonna happen here, and it didn't. And then on the other side of that, our security alarm went off at our house, and my wife was out of town, and they called and they're like, "What's your password? It's all good," and I couldn't remember it. And they said, "We're gonna dispatch police to your house." And I live and own a house in Southwest Minneapolis. And so I ran to my basement and I hid, and I called my wife who was out of town, and I said, "I'm gonna hide in our basement because the police are coming and I don't want them to see my black body on our front doorsteps." And both of those things are true. And that's the frustrating part to me, that people can want someone, some group, some organization to come and help them when they're feeling unsafe, but also want them to be held accountable when something goes terribly wrong, and not to have a relationship where it feels adversarial or you feel nervous when they see them, when you put a bag on the TSA line and you get nervous, is there a pocket knife from when I went camping or something, but you didn't do anything. And that fear still bubbles inside of you. And the fact that both of those are true, but we aren't working towards a solution. 5 years ago, we had the most political capital or social capital behind a need for change that any city has ever seen around any topic. And I think that we fumbled the bag on that.
How did we fumble the bag?
We haven't addressed policing in the way that makes people feel safe and makes them feel like when 911 is called, someone is actually going to call in a return in a reasonable time. People aren't feeling safer about seeing police officers when they're out and driving or when they're being pulled over. And if something goes wrong, they aren't certain that the person's going to be held accountable in this city. We should have been the Northern Star for how to improve a public safety system, and we haven't been. And we had all the capital in the world behind us to do it. I started an organization after this happened, and we are now nationwide serving 200,000 people on this exact topic. But the city isn't where we're supposed to be yet on the same issue.
Well, with a lot of cities, after this happens, if historically you look at many police departments, after they take somebody's life, they usually do this thing called the hands-off patrol, where they back up and they say, "Oh, we didn't like us when we were here. See how you like it without us here." And so before that, the racial disparity was through the roof, and the racial disparity is still through the roof with law enforcement. So if we go in a time machine, and this is hypothetical city, what would you have done in 2020 to address public safety at the time?
Yeah, I would have said, first of all, we have to take when you talk even to police officers, they say, I'm making up numbers, they say we have 50 things on our to-do list.
Yeah.
We need to reduce that down to 20, and we need to take that off our plate.
Yeah.
And take it off our plate doesn't mean to put it in the garbage can. It means to put it on someone else's plate that is qualified, that wants that, and can actually do that work really well.
Like a mental health crisis team or something like that?
A robust one that is available 24/7 in all parts of the city, absolutely. And also other services for people that are unhoused and need assistance, not police departments with guns in that moment. There are much more robust things. The ambulance system was created by black folks that felt like driving to the hospital in a police car is not the best solution. And a black community started transporting people who needed to go to the hospital.
Never knew this.
This was like, it wasn't 150 years ago. This was 60 years ago, 65 years ago.
Okay.
That is a solution-oriented group that is moving forward in a way that now we'd never think twice about it. It would be wild to think of a police officer coming and driving someone in their car. We should have done that in the city of Minneapolis. And then we'll reduce that and change the culture and the trust between officers and the citizens. Then maybe we wouldn't have the deficit that we have of numbers of officers that we need. If our charter says we're short 130 something officers right now, then maybe we could actually help recruit better. And we're saying you don't have to do all of the things. We're taking some of those off of your plate.
Yeah, I was told that if there's an encampment in St. Paul, a social worker approaches it. Could be entirely wrong, but this is what was told to me by some of the staffers in St. Paul. But when there's an encampment in Minneapolis, police approach it. And I can never imagine that something goes right, with a police approaching an encampment. And, is that something that they want off of their plate? Is like dealing with an unhoused community or dealing with mental health crises? Is that something that you think police would want off of their plate, or something that you would even take off of their plate and hand to somebody else if you were elected?
Absolutely. I don't think they want it on their plate. I don't think anyone is saying, what we really need right now, police going to encampments and moving them expeditiously. I think what people are actually saying, whether it's residents in that neighborhood or business owners or people that are in a caring position with them, they're saying we just want them to be put in a better place as soon as possible. Yeah. That is the solution. No one wants them to be hauled to jail. They want them to be put in a place that improves the situation they're in and helps uplift them. And if a police officer isn't the best person to do that, then they shouldn't be the person addressing and going to that. We have a team. The city calls it a team that is addressing this work. At times in the city in the last year and a half, it was 2 people. Yeah. That is not a team.
No,
a homeless
talking about the mental health
team.
crisis team?
No, a homeless response team. It was at some points 2 or 3 people. I think it's up to 5 now.
Yeah, no.
We have more than 5 encampments in Minneapolis.
100%. I mean, but according to the current mayor of Minneapolis, just about a few months ago, he said that there were only 27 unhoused people that were in the city of Minneapolis, which couldn't possibly be, right? And I don't understand why he said that, but to try to sell it short or sell it that it's not happening, there's also this obfuscation of people without houses in Minneapolis. Like, oh, this doesn't happen here. And yes, it actually does. So can you go back with me with the mental health crisis team? The pilot program only had 5 people, I believe. Is that something that could be expanded if you were elected as mayor?
It will be expanded if I'm elected. We have to have a larger response in these moments. I sat down right over here, right down the road in Northeast Minneapolis with a family member of someone, and they had called 911 so many times. Yeah. And they said, listen, the police came and sometimes someone from that unit would come, but what happened is we'd be calling again and again, time after time, and eventually it'd round up in someone being, their life ending. And that family member was like, I just felt like, yeah, they would come, but we weren't addressing the underlying issues. We weren't getting help that we needed. Yeah. Other than it felt like you were going to the ER, but there's no primary care physician to be connected to after that. Yeah. And so not only responding in the moment, but ensuring we're connecting folks to solutions that are in close proximity to where they live that can actually be used and are affordable to them in that moment.
You mentioned the police department being understaffed, and a report just went out that they were over budget by double of what they had for overtime pay, $12 million for 2024. They ended up spending $28 million for overtime pay in 2024, many times double for certain hours. And there's several officers that are under investigation from internal affairs for having padded some time here and there and not took breaks where they were supposed to. How would you address the budgeting for police, seeing that it's only gone higher? They have more cash on hand than they did when they murdered George Floyd. How would you handle that, or at least address the budget for policing in Minneapolis?
I am the CEO of the company, the social justice platform that we started. I teach an entrepreneurial finance course at the University of St. Thomas. I understand what a P&L, a profit and loss statement, should look like. I understand how to budget for these things, and what we shouldn't be doing is spending money on our police department that is not going to answering more calls and having more individuals that can answer more calls. When we're spending it on additional equipment or things that are not actually directly serving folks in the way that we need to, that's not a good allocation of the money. And the tough part that I feel like people don't want to say it at times is the cost of living is skyrocketing. And so if that is the same for people who work at a police department, that is a part of the conversation that I understand we have to have. And if it'd be easier or more lucrative to work in Bloomington or Richfield or Edina, their folks are going to go there. We have to ensure that we can be competitive on some level, but spending money on things outside of ensuring that we have enough people to do the work does not make sense. And we shouldn't do it, and we won't be successful doing it if the trust doesn't exist between the citizens and the police department that's present as well.
You mentioned about housing and policing. Most of the police that work at Minneapolis Police Department don't live in Minneapolis. So they come in, they take this overtime pay, and then they just dump it back out to Ham Lake or Lakeville or wherever they go. You know, no shade to these other suburbs, but this is almost, kind of seems like taking money out of the city, right? Like, we spend this money here in the city, and then they go take it to, you know, Coon Rapids or somewhere. So it seems like it's going one direction, right?
Yeah, and I was smiling when you said Ham Lake. When I started as a public defender in Anoka County, a lot of my clients were in the Ham Lake area,
there you go.
So that's why I smiled.
Yeah.
And listen, I think everyone says we want police officers that are a part of the community in an ideal situation.
Oh, yeah.
If for nothing else, if you are a jerk to me when you pull me over and you have to see me on the soccer field on Saturday at our kids' game, the interactions are going to be better and different. Beyond that, it starts to feel like you're a prison guard if you're leaving from a place that doesn't have the same culture or cultural mix, and then you're driving in there and policing and trying to hold people accountable in a moment. It starts to feel like a police or a warden or a prison guard than a police officer. And yes, I think that we should have more folks within the city that work for the city and ideally are from the city in an ideal situation as well.
So with that given, we have past hirings. We just saw Mark Hanneman, who killed Amir Locke, get promoted to lead instructor of use of force training. We saw the attempted hiring of Tyler Timberlake, a police officer from Virginia who kneeled on a black man's back and he basically got in some trouble at the time, and then it was all kind of cleaned up afterwards. And then we also saw the attempt to hire Charlie Storley, who was a former MPD staff member that shot another MPD officer in '97 in what turned out to be, I think the officer's name was Dewey No. And at the time, the settlement turned out to be one of the most expensive Minneapolis settlements in the history of Minneapolis in '97 at that time. If we're hiring on cops that are known for having killed somebody or attempted to kill somebody else, and the civil lawsuit is going through the roof, how do we clean that up? How do you bring in a better caliber of cop than the ones that MPD under Brian O'Hara and Jake Fry have been trying to hire back onto the force?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a mistake to hire those folks, and it shouldn't be done. The thing is, if we need 130 officers, if you just name 3 or 4 that would not be good officers based on their previous track history and track record, that's the best thing we can go off of. Then we shouldn't hire them. It's not going to help bridge the gap of the 100 and something we need. No. We need to improve the pipeline of folks that we have, whether it's going into high schools and teaching folks that this is a lucrative opportunity, especially if folks are making $500,000 in this role in the city. This is a way to show people this is a great career that you can actually have within the city, and that you're a part of the community. You're going to police in a different way. And it's going to be long-term more expensive. It's like if you don't take care of a health issue, it's going to get more and more expensive as time goes on. And hiring folks that aren't going to be good for the culture and the actual work that has to be done in MPD it's actually just going to be more expensive in a city if we're self-insuring, where we have to be paying for that as well.
Yeah, we seem to be paying for the mistakes. And the thing that I would even drive further is Brian O'Hara has reported been like, oh, that's a mistake. I don't get to oversee everything. I got so many things going on. It comes to the point where you look at Tyler Timberlake, Charlie Storley, Mark Hanneman getting promoted. Is this intentional at some point other than just a mistake? And how do we clean up, just to kind of to wrap up this talk about police policing. I have a few, like one or two more questions on reform, but how would you, if elected as mayor of Minneapolis, would you recreate the culture of policing in Minneapolis that I think a lot of people feel it needs?
I think it starts from the top down, and actually it's often the lieutenant level where we have to have folks that are saying, when I see something wrong, I'm going to raise a red flag about that, because if it goes unchecked, then it will continue to get worse. We've thrown around the term too often recently, like, oh, they're just a bad apple. And we forget the whole phrase that is, a bad apple will rotten the rest of the group. Like, that is the issue. And if we are seeing those actions, we have to address them immediately, and we have to improve the process to do that and empower the leaders. And I don't just mean the chief, I mean the leaders on multiple levels of our departments to say, if things are going wrong, you have to bring it up immediately. And if you don't, then you will be held accountable. And to that point, whether we're talking about a chief of police or the mayor of a city in a strong mayor system, that is on you. At our organization recently, one of our sales folks had a conversation with someone and they got really upset. And they emailed and said, I did not think that this is what this meeting was about. I disagree. And it made me look foolish in front of my coworkers that this happened. And we got word of that. And myself and my COO drafted a response and said, that is our fault. We weren't on the call. We didn't even know the call was going to happen. That's our fault. If someone within our organization is doing something that is upsetting someone that much and is wrong, then we have to do something about it and be held accountable ultimately.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the story. If one cop does something, breaks the law, and 9 cops see it, how many cops do you have that have broken the law or are in the wrong?
Yeah.
You have 10.
Yeah.
Because they're all looking the other way. So with all this happening, and so we saw the consent decrees come down. The one of the 2 questions that I have is, one, would you discipline Chief Brian O'Hara if you were mayor, Chief Brian O'Hara, or even address what happened about Minneapolis police showing up at Lake and Bloomington after what appeared to be an ICE raid? It wasn't at the time, but if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And if ICE is showing up in a neighborhood full of a community of color, one would assume they're there to do what we've seen them doing all around the country. Is there any way you would hold Brian O'Hara accountable for the Minneapolis police being at Lake and Bloomington just about a month ago?
This question has swirled a lot, and I'm glad you asked because I want to address it head on. Holding accountable is just like I was describing when we were just talking. It's sitting down with someone who works on this team and saying, why did we make this decision? Help me understand the facts that you had. And based upon that, we're going to make decisions, whether it is saying we're going to come out with a joint statement saying we shouldn't have done that and we'll get better, whether it's saying we are going to discipline someone by pausing their pay or whatever the case may be. There's a whole litany of things you can do to correct actions, but holding accountable starts with having the conversation and saying, this did not feel like something that is in line with the rules that we have of this department, and what did we do and what could we change in the future to make sure it never happens? Listen, when people go and have a bad experience at a restaurant, it's not like you brought the wrong food. It's like, how do we respond? I'm so sorry, we're going to take that appetizer off of the bill for you, and we're going to ensure that the next one you get is even better and the right thing. That's all you can do in that moment, and that's what we needed to do when Lake and Bloomington happened. I was there. I was actively working to de-escalate the entire interaction. There's an NPR posted a video of me trying to stop someone, a resident or a non-police individual, from throwing a garbage can into it. I was actively trying to de-escalate, but I also saw officers escalating interactions from 100%, from all agencies in that moment.
It's almost like they wanted some type of interaction on Lake and Bloomington. It seemed extremely like flammable, like they just wanted it to pop off.
I will never forget. There's a black officer there, and him and I made eye contact as someone from a federal agency, ATF, I think, came and grabbed someone, threw him down. He was actively looking for someone it felt like to grab, and I made eye contact with him, and I literally mouthed, I was like, "Get your boy, get him." And he's like, and I could feel that he, again, to the culture thing, like I could feel that he was like, I know, but like they are doing, I saw a resident throw a softball. He was like, but you see what they're doing. I was like, but you are the police officer. You are the public safety.
You're the one being paid here.
Yeah. And frankly, that stuff is what, and I ran up to the chief that day and I said, and him and his assistant chief was there, and she said, I don't have a card on me. I went to City Hall for the city council meeting after to sit in the audience, and I saw her there, and she then had one and gave it to me. And I've reached out to her and left a message, because I said, I just want to talk about this interaction and how we can make sure that things like this don't happen moving forward. Yeah,
so leading up to that, there was a question that we got from some people that were online. We said, hey, we're going to be interviewing a candidate. What questions do you have? And obviously, a lot of law enforcement has been emboldened since Trump coming into office as the president of the United States. How would you protect citizens or community members of Minneapolis from a lot of these policies and actions taking place that seem to target people of color? And whether somebody's undocumented, documented, there's all sorts of things happening where somebody is here legally, has a green card, or goes to their green card check-in, and then gets swept away by ICE. That on Lake and Bloomington did not look like it has the best interests of people of color, or even businesses or anything in that neighborhood. As mayor of Minneapolis, if you were elected, how would you ensure that people feel protected and feel safe in their own city?
I think the ultimate goal and vision isn't that Donald Trump thinks that we're the best sanctuary city or the best city for people of color. It's that the residents do. Like, I don't need to go on CNN and tell people. I need that people that go to work at Lake and Bloomington know that I feel safe going to work. Because I know in Minneapolis, if something like this is going to happen, we had knowledge of it beforehand, because we've been searching and ensuring that we're protecting the residents in that moment. And whether it is a person of color that's an immigrant or someone that was born and has lived here their entire lives, people are feeling less safe. I have felt less safe in these interactions. And not only do we have to ensure that the police department and the culture is such that that worry goes away, we also have to hold people accountable when it goes wrong. And that also is partnership with the city, county, and state level partners as well. Because if the sheriff's department knew, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department knew that they were coming ahead of time, there is no reason on God's green earth that the Minneapolis Police Department shouldn't have known as well.
Yeah, that was quite shocking that MPD reported they didn't know anything about this, and yet here we are with HSI, FBI, ATF, and Hennepin County Sheriff's Department all knowing without MPD knowing. It sounds very dangerous too.
I would love to know, I would like to believe that if there are several, I don't care what you call them, tanks, Humvees, armored vehicles within the city limits, that someone within the city, the infrastructure of the city, raises their hand and says, does this belong to any of us?
Yeah, I don't really think a Lenco Bearcat, or at least more than one or two of them, just more than a half a Lenco Bearcat belongs in the city. There's just personally my opinion.
If we can know where Taylor Swift's airplane is, surely we can know when a Humvee is within the city limits.
We probably should know that. I think we should know that. Speaking on that, just going to the end of this, what is your take on police reform, and how would it apply to Minneapolis if you were elected mayor?
Police reform looks like this. It starts with trust between the citizens and the police department. It can start with, at my barbershop, someone said, they don't come in here. I only see police officers when they're pulling people over and then getting back in their car. Why don't they come into our barbershop and talk to us? And then the next person in the chair next to me said, well, I don't want them in here with their guns and their badges intimidating me. How about they come in with an MPD shirt and actually sit down and hang out with us and get to know us as community members?
Take the uniform off.
Yes, and that, speaking of overtime pay, that is some work that I would love for our police department to do. And that's just one example of how we need to actually build the trust. And then with that, take all of these things off the plate of officers that they do not want to be doing and that other people are yearning to do and be a part of the solution to reduce the things we're asking for. And then finally, have a pipeline of people that actually deeply care about and are from this community that want to be a part of the policing system.
If you can get Brian O'Hare in a black barbershop, we will film it.
I can't wait.
We will film it.
Now, be careful what you wish for.
Film that.
Be careful what you wish for.
No uniforms, no nothing.
Yeah.
He's just got to go in there.
Just getting a brush fade.
Exactly, but I mean, and then he's got to come in with at least 2 employees that work in a second-rank suburb or further. Just bring them in, and that's serious. Like, bring people into, because I feel like a lot of cops, their only interaction with black folk or people of color is how they look at them in a condescending manner, like they are the, they're the authority, and it's like I can guarantee you that a lot of these cops have no black friends, or they don't have interaction with people of color, and it's that that basically changes their lens on how they work their job.
Not to kill the vibe, but my dad is black and my mom is white. When they got together, my mom's dad said, "I will not support you two being together, and I am not okay with you being a part of or marrying him or marrying into this family." And he said, "I won't support it and I won't come to the wedding." Decades later, when that same grandfather was passing away, my dad was there bedside and he held my dad's hand and he said, "You're as much of a son to me as any of the sons that my wife gave birth to."
Wow.
That's because he got to know him. And they became so close. And now my brother, who's named after my dad, O'Neill the third, and who has the fourth, he wears my grandpa's wedding ring around his neck. It's because you get to know somebody. It's these barriers that are artificial, and now even worse because social media, that we have to break down. So yeah, it is funny to think about, but like I would love for them to come kick in the barbershop and tell us what they think about how we're going to backfill Nickeil Alexander on the Timberwolves. You know, I would love to hear it.
No, I would love to hear about it as well. Now, just going forward with this idea of police reform, can we get one specific from you? Because I know that these statements can be like very vague and like sweeping and umbrella terms. What is one thing you would address in policing right now in Minneapolis and like regarding police reform? Are we talking about QI? Are we talking about overtime? Are we talking about the abysmal system that is in the oversight committee, where you have all these like just these mechanisms in place where like retired officers can oversee it and like make a call, and you don't really have anybody answering to anybody. I think Cleveland has they had issue 11 or whatever it was called, where they had people affected by police brutality overseeing a disciplinary realm of for police, being like, hey, we get to call the shots on when you screw up. What is one thing you would put in place for police reform for Minneapolis if elected mayor?
It would be streamlining and improving the process for holding folks accountable when something goes wrong. When a complaint comes in, streamlining and holding folks accountable. I am a lawyer. I firmly believe in due process, but streamlining that, because what happens is people will say, well, it's taking too long. Or I'm not going to come to a meeting in 8 months or 16 months. And that prevents people from even raising their hand. And then there's an officer who may have had 16 complaints that only has 2 because the process is too onerous or burdensome. And the second thing I will say is ensuring that we have other people answering these 911 calls that do not require a police officer with a badge and gun to come and answer them. And I would actually argue it should be a different number. And this is I believe I'm the first person that said this in the city. It should be a different number. I talk to too many residents that say, I want to call 911, but it's a person that seems to be unhoused, and I don't want them to come with the police to come with a gun, because I don't want to be the person that was responsible for initiating the action that could end someone's life. And so having additional numbers to call within the city is something I think that we should do.
What is the experience that you have in dealing with police reform or working through crisis or problematic times?
I think the first example of it is the organization that we started 5 years ago. So I started an organization called Turn Signal. It's a platform that anyone can have on their phone that connects a driver to an attorney on a video call instantly when they've been pulled over, within 15 seconds, to de-escalate the interaction, protect their rights, and ensure they get home alive and safe. We now serve over 200,000 people across the United States. It's used over 100 and something times every month, constantly across the country. That is an example of us being in the vehicle during these interactions over and over and over again, and ensuring that we're de-escalating them in the proper manner, and ensuring that someone's there to answer the call. That's why I called the not emergency line recently, and I got a voicemail. It was like 6:30 in the afternoon. I got a voicemail.
Okay.
That isn't okay. And we staffed a nationwide network of attorneys. That is some of the improvement that we have to do, and some of the experience that I've had in actually building systems that can actually address this, not only in this city and state, but across the country.
Okay. How would you address violence prevention? We talk a lot about police reform and whatnot, but the idea of just community violence, how is that something that you would address? I mean, how would you approach community violence?
I think that it's hard if there's glass on the floor in front of you and you're walking barefoot, it's hard for you to look up at the future. And that's what so many of the young folks in our city are dealing with. And they're in this situation, are making these decisions because they just have to look at the immediacy right now. And I think Baltimore is a great example of additional after school, summer, and late night programs that will decrease crime. Because when people hear violence preventers, they picture like someone standing on the street corner and be like, hey, don't take out that gun. And like, that's not it. It's that person wouldn't be on the street corner in the first place because they have a program to be at. They have classes to be a part of. They have an opportunity where they feel like they can rise out of the cracks of our society in a system that has been oppressing them for so long. And I want to invest in those programs and that work, as well as doing the other violence prevention work that we've already started within the city.
Yeah, Mayor Scott seemed to have cut whole, I think it's like
67%, I think.
My gosh, my goodness. And the fact that he was able to implement all these resources for people to have. So going back to what you talked about, and we're wrapping up here with like the final questions. We'll give you a rapid fire round here at the end. It's called the Minnesota paradox, where many articles will cite, Minnesota's a great place to live, a great place to date, own a home, this, that, and the third. And then you look at the racial disparity in Minnesota and Minneapolis being like a very highlight of all this, unless you're black. All these things are great unless you're black. The education, the racial disparity in education, the reading rates of black students versus their white classmates, the suspension rates. If you, like a white student has done the same thing. I mean, it was so wild that the Fed had to get involved. The federal bank had to get involved. And my question to you is, how do you address the Minneapolis paradox that's in tandem with the Minnesota paradox of, the Tangletown, Linden Hills, it's great until, unless, you are a person of color and the way that you're treated is vastly different than white people in Minneapolis.
A rising tide lifts all boats, and we're like, hey, we're gonna make the city better for Minneapolis, a rising tide, but like some of our boats have a hole in it. Yeah. So actually a rising tide hurts me because more water's flooding into my boat. Mm-hmm. And so in that situation, we have to plug the hole. That has to be the first thing that we're addressing and looking at. So in the education system, I have 3 children in Minneapolis public schools starting in September, our youngest coming in. Yeah. That is a concern for me. If reading rates and the 4-year graduation rates are still gonna plummet, we have to actually address the direct issue rather than saying, oh, we're gonna make education better for everyone. It's not good for a certain group of folks. Yeah. What program are we gonna directly target at these communities to help them in this moment? And that's where our dollars and resources should be going. I mean, on education, we're gonna be in a $75 million deficit in the city of Minneapolis for our public school in September, or coming in the fall. That is terrifying, and the first cuts are gonna come are to special education and for ancillary services that are desperately needed. More communities that are marginalized are gonna continue being hurt. We have to target our services and dollars directly at them, and the mayor's office and the city council has to do that work together. I talked to a state rep who said, my Republican colleagues are hesitant to send the city of Minneapolis money because they think that they'll just fight instead of spending it appropriately. We have to prevent that from happening in this city.
How would you work with city council going forward? Because there seems to be a giant chasm between the two right now. There is a canyon between the mayor and the city council. How would you go about that relationship?
I'm literally, as an attorney, scheduling a mediation for a few folks in the next few weeks. I've spent time with 2 parties that are disagreeing deeply in the entire history of my work, whether it's police and drivers or in the court system or in the mediation system. You have to bring everyone to the table and realize that we are all just trying to represent our portion of our constituents to the best of our abilities. Of course, Ward 6 is going to have a different needs than Linden Hills and Ward 13. Ward 6 is 94% renters. Of course that's going to be different needs. And we have to all sit at the table and say, how are we going to work together to get this done? And it starts with actually having conversations, because from my understanding, they aren't happening anymore. From my understanding, the city council and the mayor's office are struggling to meet. I have called and set a coffee with, or have already met with every city council member, regardless of their background. And I think I'm the only person that is doing that, because listen, I have my own political ideologies, but that's just a framework for how we have to collectively do the work. And I am excited to do it with every single city council member. I had someone tweet, like, why would you share a picture with that city council member? And I was like, well, I'm excited to work with them. And what policy could you possibly be excited to work with them about? Well, I'm gonna be the mayor, and they're a city council member, every policy.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so rapid fire round, and then we go to the final question here. Number 1 of 3, what is your favorite Minnesota State Fair food?
I know it sounds easy, but the cookies, Sweet Martha's, is like the best. Like if you ever visit my house and I don't have pre-packaged place and bake cookies in the fridge, I'll give you $5. It won't happen. It won't happen. I'm addicted to cookies.
Just pull up with 100 people. We walking out with $500,000. Okay, if only one of these teams could win a championship before you move on to the next life, would you rather see the Twins or the Vikings win a championship?
The Vikings, for sure. But I will say, I went to 33 straight Twins openers,
Oh my goodness.
which is credit to my mom.
Okay, well there you go. There you go. Still shining the rings from 1991.
Yeah,
and 87.
87, 91.
What's your favorite season in Minnesota?
The summer. I know everyone's like fall is great, but like the summer is what I've been waiting for. And the freedom that we feel as Minnesotans to be like, it's Friday at 3. We're done, right? I want to go enjoy the weather. I just love Minnesota summers.
Bonus round, where can you find the best donut in Minneapolis?
The best donut is Glamdall on Nicollet.
Oh.
And I say that because 2 of my children have egg allergies. And they have an entire section of egg-free donuts. And so you can get everything you need over there.
Okay, I was gonna say Sarah Jane, or I was gonna say a baker's wife.
Ooh, it hits.
Baker's wife?
Baker's wife is great.
It is difficult being in there. They have like the giant donuts that are the size. Okay, last question. What is your vision for the future of Minneapolis?
My vision for the future of Minneapolis is, I'm trying to think of a place where our complaints are focused. On next door,
Okay.
people aren't arguing about the things they're arguing now. They're arguing about where's the best restaurant to go eat, about their favorite place to take their kids in the favorite parks, and saying like, no, Mill City isn't the best. You think that's the best. Actually, it's off Hiawatha over here. That is the vision where we have so much opportunity and we're thriving in a way that our complaints are about why other niches are better than the other. And the connective corridors that exist between them, if you're in Mill City, how you get to Ward 8 to like 38th and Pleasant or wherever you're gonna go is full. There's 8 coffee shops as you're driving through and restaurants. It's not all concentrated in the North Loop or in a downtown area. The entire city thriving because that improves the property taxes that people are going to see because businesses are thriving. People have jobs where they feel confident they're going to be paid a living wage. People feel safe because we have the finances and a police department that is in a place where we feel comfortable at all times. That is my vision of Minneapolis. It's optimistic. And I'm scared to say it sometimes, but like it's that '08 Obama optimism. Like that is the vision for our city that I have.
Okay, and I just thought of this while you were saying that. I love that answer because it takes it to another level where it's like, hey, we should be talking about things that are, more so just attributes to the city rather than, where this next question is going to go. What is your vision for Uptown of Minneapolis, if elected mayor of Minneapolis? I know a ton of people are going to ask this question, and if I leave it out, I'm not going to live to see the day where somebody doesn't talk to me about this.
Yeah.
What is your vision for Uptown Minneapolis? And it's not a trick question, but there's so many layers to it because it is an example of where state-sanctioned violence occurs, an economic sinkhole happens, it gets too big to fail, and all of a sudden it's actually failing. Yeah. What do you do with Uptown?
I think Uptown is going to be, I don't like the word return because I don't like it because return implies we're going to go back to like 4 different bars or 6 bars and 26-year-olds going there. I don't think it is. You know what I actually believe is the push for Uptown to be a thriving place where people are visiting and going consistently and living around. I think the leader for us in that is the arts. I think it's going to be music. I think it's going to be actual physical art that we look at. And I think it's going to be things and events that are pulling us to Uptown. Because here's what I believe. I think there's already coffee shops going in. I think there's people that are living distance that can come back into living distance if they feel like there's events consistently to go to there. And all of that can be sparked by events where people are going, when the concert is there. When Big Sean comes into town and First Ave may be the venue, going to somewhere in Uptown, having actual shows in the place will actually bring it back. And we are a community of artists. And I think that can be one of the leading things that brings back the coffee shops, the restaurants, the bars, and the residents in that area.
Well, thank you so much for the time, Jazz. Appreciate you
appreciate
taking time for this interview. Best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cheers.